Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we'll take a look at this. You may think, well, this is a 1845/55 and you would be correct because of the hilt. That is a very recognizable and very iconic 19th century French hilt. However, there's something a little off about this sword, something that I have not been able to pinpoint yet. I have some ideas, of course, but this is one of those times where I actually also talk to you as a community of sword lovers, and perhaps some of you have some extra insights that can help me identify this a little better. So I'm not going to be diving into the history of the 1845 infantry officer sabre or its different variations, except to mention the fact that maybe you have noticed this one has a straight blade compared to the slightly curved ones that you often see in the adjutant officer version. So, and maybe some of you have already said, well, that's obviously a superior officer's saber. You can see it has these two fullers running through. But the superior officer's version actually doesn't have two fullers. It has four fullers, if I'm not completely mistaken. It has a similar shape. It kind of, the fullers end up creating kind of almost a central ridge like you see here, but it's not the same shape. So this is for sure not a official, like state sanctioned, I suppose. Although that's not true, we'll see it in a second, but it's not the official version of 1845/1855 superior officer's blade. And this is where the sword gets really interesting, I think, because, well, the blade does not match, as far as I can tell at least, any typically standardized blade model that you would have found on 19th century French swords. It does have maker's marks and even quality control marks that definitely indicate it is a sword made, a French military sword. So we'll see that in just a second. Actually, let's see it right away, because no point looking at my face when we can look at the sword. So let's dive in. Okay, so I shared this sword on a popular sword-related or antique weapons-related French forum, and the comment I got, the opinion I got, was that this may actually be a very fancy custom version of 1845. So let's see why someone thought that and why I kind of agree, although I can't say more about it. So let's start with the hilt. The hilt is the typical 1845 you would imagine, with its beautiful open work. And it's actually gilt, I think, in this case, because you can see a very beautiful shine on it that is not the typical one you would see on brass. At least here it's gilt, I think. This looks more like normal brass. And maybe you've already spotted what already is unusual compared to other 1845s is that the grip is wrapped in shagreen. So usually 1845s have a horn grip, and that is pretty standard and universal. I have actually seen online, I think, not more than 2 or 3 pictures of a 1845 with a similar shagreen wrapped grip, but none of these pictures led to like a page or a forum post or anything where I could find any information about it. So I just found these couple of pictures and that's all I had to work with. And that's obviously not much because I didn't learn anything except that it's not unique. So shagreen, and then of course I won't go through the whole 1845 hilt. I assume you all know it very well. The thing here, though, the other thing I want to show you is that the shagreen is slightly damaged in this point, and it seems to me like under here is not horn. This is wood, if I'm not mistaken. So that would mean that it's not just the extra wrapping of the grip, someone decided to wrap it, but it's actually made of a different material. The whole grip is actually a custom job. But we do have a marking here, or what I think is a marking. This looks like a number. It could be a 0, or maybe it's a 9 or something. Not exactly sure, but it's definitely a mark there. And then on the blade comes the more interesting part. Here's where we actually have the proof marks. So you see a B. I'm not sure why today it's really not collaborating with focus. So it's a B here under a crown. Okay, B under a crown on this side, and over here we have a D under the same crown. So these are, I checked for reference in like different French markings, and these would be consistent, I think, with the sword being between 1830 and 1860. So obviously the hilt kind of says that the sword wasn't made before 1845, if the blade is original with the hilt. So the blade could either be earlier, potentially, and then added to an 1845 hilt, or it could be that the whole sword was manufactured between 1845 and 1860-ish, of course, because these aren't always precise to the year. And then here, just a little way up on the blade, we have the typical marks that in the position where you often see them on some French swords that don't have a spine. And we have, I'm sorry, today focus is really not my friend. There's something that looks to me like a Manufacture de Klingenthal. So there's a very clear K and L there, and then an L over there. It's obviously been rubbed away here on the spine. And over here, we have another inscription. And actually, you can see how delicate these inscriptions are. And this kind of explains why so often these are rubbed away really quickly. And that seems to me like Culot and CIE. It's the version Culot ampersand CIE. So I checked, and again, the markings, like the proof marks, are consistent with the maker's marks, so everything seems to check out for as far as markings go on this sword. Now, the interesting thing here is this fuller configuration. We have these two fullers. There's a broad ricasso here that kind of drops down here, and then there's a little edge, and then the two fullers start. They run parallel with a rather raised central spine. You can really see it on both sides here. And it runs all the way, let's say, up to maybe 60% of the blade. And yeah, and there it kind of quickly tapers off. Then the blade continues with a central ridge, we see here. And it ends in what is another very unusual point, literally in this case, or tip. And it's this kind of upturned, I don't even know how to define it, clipped, semi-clipped tip. So it kind of continues all the way here, and then here it quickly drops down into a bit of a clip, and then it upturns as well. So it's not just a full clip, but the whole tip here seems to turn upwards. So initially I thought this may be a shortened blade, like something that had been damaged and then repaired and in this way. But I'm not sure about that, because if you look at the central ridge here, the central ridge continues all the way and actually curves together with the tip. It curves up. So this was either a repair job, but done really well, because what normally happens is that if something breaks, let's say, they wouldn't pay all this attention in ensuring that this little ridge is consistent with the rest of the blade. Or it may have been made this way, but I've never seen this little subtle clip. And also, if it's made like that, why? What would the point be for this? On a straight blade, it seems counterproductive, because usually the clip is more to correct the tip direction for thrusting, but on straight blade, just a spear tip should be sufficient. So anyway, this is a very interesting, a bit of a mystery sword. Yeah, I will occasionally keep looking into it until I try and figure out what it is. But if you can help me in that quest, I would be very grateful for that. And there we go. I hope this sword was as interesting for you to see today as it was for me to share. I'll have to delicately clean the little bit of rust dust you can see down at the ricasso, as I mentioned. But it's overall in rather good condition. I also would like to hear your opinion. Well, first, of course, I'll again appeal to the collective knowledge of the internet and ask you if you have any hypothesis, or if you've seen something like this sword, or if you know the shape of the blade. And also, I am very curious to know your opinions. I am of the idea that I will try tightening this pin. It's all really set in place, so I think just a few hammer whacks should enable me to bring this back to a nice solid grip. The only thing I'd like to know from any of you who have already attempted this, especially on antiques, is, well, what should I be mindful of? I know I'll have to use a peening hammer, of course, and try not to hit the brass, but if there's any kind of pro technique, I'm happy to hear, because this is something I'm attempting for the first time. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon with another sword video, and thank you for watching.